Welcome to Northwest Tech Show. I'm Dave Duncan, and this is a show where we talk about technology and how a better understanding of it can help you have better outcomes at home, at work, and in your civic engagements. We're going to kick things off, as we like to do, with a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at Twit TV.
This is Twit.
We have the rat dispenser. It's probably worth taking just a moment to reinforce the need to never, and I mean really never, click to open an attachment received in an email. Any email, even if it's from your mom. Okay, now cybersecurity experts from HP said they discovered a new strain of JavaScript malware that criminals are using as a way to infect systems and then deploy dangerous remote access Trojans. In other words, the remote access Trojan, RAT, R-A-T, thus the rat dispenser. But I put, Leo, cybersecurity experts from HP in quotes because, well, try going to, and I'm serious, threatresearch.ext.hp.com.
Okay. The HP Wolf security blog.
And you got there somehow. They must have just fixed this.
Oh, it was broken?
Yes. Look at in the show notes. I've got the TLS certificate that both Firefox and Google were displaying this morning. I had to fight my way through in order to get there.
Keep your sites up to date, kids. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me see. Why is it working for you? Threat research.
Let me. They may have just fixed their certificate. Let me look at their certificate here.
Yeah, it came right up now.
Yeah, they fixed
That's
it. Yeah.
Annoying. Okay, so I can't. That's someone must have told them, probably because they were in the news. But this morning, I got both Firefox and Chrome refused, and what I couldn't understand was that the certificate that they were serving expired on March 18th of 2021.
Yeah. So this is from March 15th, 2021. So they got a new one. But then maybe they didn't apply it. It goes through the 2022. Maybe they forgot, or I don't know.
Right. So they were on. So
they got the certificate. They probably didn't install it
on the same cycle. But Leo,
but the site should have been down since last March.
Correct. It could not have been offline for 10 months.
No.
So something weird.
It was a what do they call that? A regression.
Yes, we do call it a regression. Yes. It was definitely that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, HP explains, because they do have good researchers. They said,
as embarrassing as that is.
Oh God. Yeah. I mean, and it's why I took a screenshot of it. It's like,
so
what?
Embarrassing.
No. And then I thought maybe Firefox, so I went over to Chrome, and Chrome wouldn't show it either.
Whoopsies.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, threat actors, they said, are always looking for stealthy ways of delivering malware without being detected. In this article, we describe how attackers are using an evasive JavaScript loader that we call Rat Dispenser to distribute remote access Trojans and information stealers. With only, and this is what's really amazing, an 11% detection rate, meaning 1 out of 10 gets flagged, 1 out of 10 instances. An 11% detection rate, Rat Dispenser appears, they wrote, to be effective at evading security controls and delivering malware. In total, we identified 8 malware families distributed using this malware during 2021. All the payloads were rats, remote access Trojans, designed to steal information and give attackers control over victim devices. As with most attacks involving JavaScript malware, Rat Dispenser is used to gain an initial foothold on a system before launching secondary malware that establishes control over the compromised device. Interestingly, they said, our investigation found that Rat Dispenser is predominantly being used as a dropper in 94% of samples analyzed, meaning the malware doesn't communicate over the network to deliver a malicious payload. In other words, it incorporates it. The variety in malware families, many of which can be purchased or downloaded freely from underground marketplaces, and the preference of malware operators to drop their payloads suggests that the authors of Rat Dispenser may be operating under a malware as a service business model. Wonderful. Okay, so the infection chain begins with a user receiving an email containing, and I read this and I just like, really? This is still happening? A malicious attachment. It's the classic double file extension, something like orderinformation.txt.js, which we've all known about for how long, yet it still works. It still isn't being displayed properly. It's still being handled by our email agents. So the unwitting user simply needs to double-click the file to run the malware. What I want to know is, how is it that any of today's email clients will run such a file with a simple double-click? This morning, I just had to promise my firstborn child to view this report from HP because their once legitimate TLS certificate had expired. I had this warning, do not trust this site.
Oh God.
Go back now. And it's like, no, I looked at the URL. No, it's right. And it's like, and I pressed advanced and it said, are you sure you're advanced? Yes. Okay. Do you have any children? Will you? Are you planning to?
Can we have them?
Right. Oh, my God. But no, .text.js. Oh, wonderful. Run the code.
Oh, gosh.
What is happening?
Yeah.
We clearly have our priorities backwards.
Yeah. Oh, my God.
So HB notes that network defenders can prevent infection, like at the enterprise level, by blocking executable file attachment file types from passing through their email gateways. For example, JavaScript or VBScript. What a concept. Defenders, they said, can also interrupt the execution of the malware by changing the default file handler for JavaScript files, only allowing digitally signed scripts to run, or disabling Windows script host. Okay. But I ask why any of that is even necessary. It won't protect anyone outside of those enterprise boundaries, right? The standard default is you click on something .js. We don't care where it came from. We don't care how it got into your system. You want it, you got it. It's crazy. When the malware runs, the JavaScript decodes itself at runtime, because, of course, it's all heavily obfuscated. It's just a bunch of, slash hex codes that behind some evals. That writes a VB script file to the temp folder using command.exe. To do this, command.exe, the process, is passed a long chained argument, parts of which are written to the new file using the echo function. Then the VB script file runs to download. It is downloading the malware payload from somewhere. If it was downloaded successfully, it's executed, and the VB script file is deleted. So it's like, we got what we wanted. Now delete this. Again, how can it be that you're not allowed to visit a site whose certificate has expired, yet click on a link in email? Run some code? No problem. The initial JavaScript downloader is obfuscated and contains several eval functions, as I mentioned. One of the eval calls is a function that returns a long string, which is decoded by another function. And it's clearly effective, since only, as I said, about 1 out of every 10 instances, 11%, that's 1 out of 9, are now being detected after many months of successful exploitation. Over the past 3 months, HP said the malware had been used to drop at least 8 different rat strains, such as STT-rat, WSH, we know what that stands for, rat, Adwind, Formbook, Remcos, Panda Stealer, Goo Loader, and Ratty.
Love the names.
So as I started out, the Ratty Rat. As I started out saying, it's worth just refreshing the strength of the prohibition against ever clicking on anything that is received in email. Really, I mean, these guys are clever. They're going out of their way to avoid the protections built into our systems. It's dispiriting that it is still possible to do this today, but it is.
And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. That was a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. That was Security Now 847 Rat Dispenser. Yes. So, yeah, again, RAT is Remote Access Trojan. This is just something that lets, a remote user control functions on the target, which is often a cell phone, and doing everything you can do, plus some things maybe you can't do, because it has hooks into the system. So, maybe it can do things like record audio or, things that, wouldn't necessarily have easy access to from the user interface. They were talking about malware as a service. Yeah, this is a kind of a growing problem. So this is, we were talking about the NSO group. They were doing malware as a service. Only they were supposedly doing it just for the, state level actors, but and for, presumably good purposes. But, it wound up being used to, track down, journalists and, whistleblowers and things like this. So this malware as a service, like the NSO group did, they do moderately keep control of the ability to target somebody. But then I think they mentioned they probably refrain from being in the loop for the data that actually comes off. So that way they, are never in possession of data they shouldn't have, and, kind of keeps their hands clean to a certain degree. Plausible deniability, right? If they don't see what is being obtained, then they're not responsible for figuring out that it's nefarious purposes when, that person turns up dead or whatever. So this is sort of a similar model to what the ransomware gangs were doing. They were doing ransomware as a service. So in both these cases, the infection process and the Trojan itself are under the control of the vendor. And maybe the client is given a tool to receive data from the Trojan and, and a control panel for doing things with it. And maybe even, constraining the amount of time it's active. It's like, okay, you bought this for, a week or a month, and, then it's going to, turn off and delete itself, so it doesn't, because one of the expenses here is every time one of these, 0 days is deployed, especially the no-click kind where, they can infect a phone without the user actually having to take any action at all or have any awareness that anything happened. Those are very valuable. And if they are used too much, then people will detect them and the manufacturer will be notified and they will, close the hole. So that's factored into the prices they charge. And, Apple and Facebook are now suing NSO Group for violating terms of service and, basically this no-click activation required using an Apple account to send the message. that does this. And it's like, well, we got terms of service that say you don't do this. So you did it, therefore you violate terms of service and you owe us a boatload of money. And I think similar things with Facebook. So will be interesting to see how that proceeds. I heard someone, I've talked about this a little bit last week, and I was like, well, these guys that actually know how to do this stuff will just disappear and form a new group. I've heard a podcast today speculating that's like, well, these guys came from Israeli intelligence and they'll probably just go back there. And, to a certain degree, the NSO was seen as a extension of that government anyway, given its close ties. And, but it was, it was legally separated enough from the government that the federal court ruled that you could sue them. It wasn't, because you can't sue a country, but you can sue a company. Let's see. Yeah, 11% detection rate. Kind of ridiculous that, 25 years on, 30 years on, we still have these games being played with the extensions on files. And I see all the time where a file has double extension. And in Windows machines, most by default, extensions are hidden. And so if you have a double extension, that's like, okay, if I say some file.txt.js, if extensions are hidden, it's the computer's going to see, well, the extension here is the last one, .js. And so that's the part I'll hide. And so you'll see a file that's saying, some file.txt, and you're going, oh, that's harmless. I'll go ahead and open that. And then it'll automatically open with something else. And that this sort of double extension is not detected and some sort of alert thrown up, here again, as I say, 25, 30 years on into this being a problem, I'm really stunned that does not throw up some sort of warning dialogue. It's pretty ridiculous. So on every Windows system I set up, or encounter, I go into the view options and I turn off the hide extensions because I want to know the actual file name of what I'm clicking on. I don't want to be subject to these kinds of games. And this whole sending stuff in email, a lot of times, well, too often, you don't even have to do anything. Like, say, if you get an email and it's formatted in HTML with pictures and stuff embedded and all that, pretty stuff, and someone has like a tracking pixel in there, which is basically you include an image tag that's for something that's really small and inconspicuous. And so it goes out to some server to, quote unquote, load this picture, which is just like 1 pixel. But the act of doing that is detected on that server as, oh, the computer at this IP address just fetched this pixel. And therefore, that means they opened their email. So, you can kind of detect when people have opened email based on that. Maybe you don't want people to know that. If nothing else, it's, if someone's spamming, they can tell what is actually getting to a human and what is not. And, find addresses maybe you did not want them to have. Because a lot of times they'll just Bob at some domain, Chris at some domain, Adam at some domain. They'll just run through all the simple names and all the simple names plus one letter and all the, popular last names, and, with the first initial of all the things. And, they'll try everything. And through these kinds of techniques, they'll figure out which ones actually go somewhere. Now those have increased value. Now they sell that to a spammer and say, as of this date, this was being read by a live person. Okay, so now let's just spam the hell out of them. Not fun. I recall years ago when mail started getting all multimedia. I was like, you know what? In my email client, I don't want to worry about someone infecting me or tracking me or all this BS. I just want text. Can I have a mail client, back when we used mail clients, that only receives text? Everything is text. If someone sends a binary, fine. It'll just be, well, no, even then, it'd be like, nope, this binary file, it's got values that aren't letters, bye. That's all I wanted. And I wish on the webmail clients we have now, like Gmail and all the others. I wish we had that option to say, hey, I do not want multimedia mail. Email I'm interested in is words, not, links and files and, and bits of JavaScript and stuff. I don't want that. I just, all my legitimate correspondence is not sending me, runnable code. They're sending me text. They're saying, hi, Dave, blah, blah, blah. Here's the thing. So that there isn't an option to do that, I don't know. That just always really kind of had a bad smell to me. That it's like, what? This is such an obvious way to just end one of the big vectors for things to infect us, which is, sending stuff that has all sorts of, bells and whistles in it. I mean, you can still have links, but shoot, don't make them clickable. If someone wants to send you a link, make somebody copy and paste that thing, because there's too often a click is, it's accidental. I've had my mouse, when the mouse gets a little worn in, just moving it across the page can make it click. It happens enough. I mean, you think, okay, well, that's not going to happen very often. Well, the web is based on scale. Not very many people are going to act on, spam scams. But the cost of sending the email is virtually zero. So even a very, very, very small open rate is going to be worth doing. And the same thing with these other situations. I see a lot of pages where the thing you want to click on is, in the prominent place on the page, and you move the mouse to go there, and just like a millisecond before you click, it's like, oh, I'm going to move everything around, so now that's an ad. That's very upsetting. And, this is the sort of thing you can calibrate statistically. You say, well, if we, on average, this, rearrangement happens, X milliseconds after page load, then, and the average response time is from here to here, then, we're going to get this percentage of people clicking on an ad that, and we get money when someone clicks on our ads, whether, they act on the ad or they kill the page instantly. It doesn't matter. They clicked on the ad. You got a human to click on an ad. That's not technically click fraud, even if you played games with your page so that it, everything danced around at the last second. I mean, there are cases where you can show one image and have a different arrangement as your click surface. So, you can be clicking on things you don't realize you're clicking on. But, if you get caught doing that, that's obviously click fraud, and you're going to lose your advertisers. But, this other stuff, accidental or on purpose bad design, okay, fine, get those clicks up. That's all that matters. What is the solution to this? Well, as they say, if you can deactivate running JavaScript, to get the JavaScript handler and deactivate that. And there's going to be web pages on how to do that for whatever platform you're on. That's probably a good step. I mean, you don't generally want to run programs in your email and then, deactivate that. On web pages, it's a little harder because, some dynamic content, web applications, they need to be able to do that stuff. It's, some of it's local and some of it's run on the cloud, and you get the return from the other side. I guess you could stick to that. I guess a lot of web apps are based that way, but I kind of think some of them have a local component, and it would be, maybe problematic to their function to do that, to turn that off completely. As they were talking, maybe not on here, but I was hearing them talk about some tightening up of some of the accelerations that were done for computing on the web, like just-in-time compilers and such, that were responsible for about 40% of the web-based attacks. It was using these accelerations. And so you can say, you do what they called super duper secure mode, which is experimental right now. And, you turn that on and it turns off just-in-time compiling and a bunch of other stuff, adds in some security stuff to the coding pipeline there of things that are run when you see code on the web. And in theory, it shouldn't change anything, because only stuff that is trying to break the security model of the web should have a problem when you turn off these options. It's just slower. But machines are so fast now that even running, slower than than the absolute maximum they can is actually still pretty quick, and maybe dwarfed by the response rate of the website or your web connection. So hopefully we'll see that be used more. And they were talking about with that, you could go into strict mode where, you do not allow any of those things to be used, or you could make balanced, which it would guess for you which sites were okay to use the acceleration on and which were not. And then on top of that, you could manually whitelist websites. So you go to a website and for whatever reason it needs the just-in-time compiling and the other stuff, and you trust the site, then you could turn it on for that website and leave it off for everything else. So, yeah, hopefully that comes along. We need more stuff like that. And, frankly, that's the approach that should be taken to all these, freaking attachments and stuff that, run within your mail. It should be, okay, this is off by default. You should be checking if stuff is like, oh, by the way, this is this thing that seems to be labeled .txt. It's actually a JavaScript file. These are usually malicious. Think twice before opening this, or maybe, open it in a text editor instead of a JavaScript interpreter so you can see what it does. And even just be like, some of these things are really short. You're like, okay, it's a JavaScript code that runs a certain application. Okay, most people could look at that and read, it's like, oh, run, quote, blah, blah, blah. Go, oh, I guess that's running that program. I mean, something funny is going on because, maybe it's just a complete lack of concern because there's so little liability for doing things badly online. Maybe that's why they seem to be getting worse. Maybe they're just, cutting back on the coders, or they're giving them, time budgets for how long they can spend on a given thing. And the end result is we get stuff that looks like, an incompetent high schooler put it together. It's just bizarre, the stuff that wound up, being out there. And sometimes these things, on the surface, they look like a horrible decision, but it was a consequence of a lot of technical debt. The way things had gone before, it's like, we have to do this because, X, Y, and Z critical projects rely on it, so we can't change it. Sometimes something like that. And that's where you would hope companies that are swimming in money, and so many people are getting hurt by these things, that they'd say, okay, we're going to spend some time to redesign this code so that we don't have to do things in such a crummy way. But we come to it, it's like, well, why would they do that? Why would they care? They're making money. They hate, they don't have any liability. They get some bad press, and, a few days later, everyone's forgotten about it. Why bother? Why put out things that are of good quality? And so collectively, our national infrastructure just gets weaker and weaker and weaker. So I think we need to, put their feet to the fire a little bit more, maybe at a government level. It's like, hey, measure how much this is damaging national security and give them some consequences. Say, you must sell this with a warning tag saying, by the way, security is BS on this product. The old BS security tag. Maybe that'd be like, oh, shoot. Well, if you make it visible what products have done security well and which ones have done a horrible job. When people are looking at those boxes, online or in person, they're going to say, well, I guess I should go for the one that doesn't have the sucky security. I mean, computers are super, super personal devices now. I mean, they called them personal computers originally just because they weren't, the corporate or government computers. But personal computer really takes on a new meaning when you come to, your personal devices that you carry around with you, be it a laptop or phones or whatever, or even a desktop if you have something like that. It's there is a lot of our life and identity is on there, and I think we've got a right to expect some truth in labeling. It's like, do not sell us garbage and tell us it's caviar. And sort of in that vein, we'll do another Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. This is Windows Weekly 752, talking about an approach to stopping apps from tracking us.
This is Twit.
So the app pick of the week, this one's kind of interesting. So if you're familiar with how the iPhone works now, I think starting with probably iOS 14.5, Apple enabled a way to block app tracking, like tracking through apps. And the way they do it, I don't have an iPhone anymore to test this, but my understanding is the way that it works is the first time an app comes up and tries to track you, Apple throws up a dialog and says, hey, this app's trying to track you. And you can actually agree to it if you're like, yeah, I love Facebook. Why not? Go to town. I don't care about all the evil stuff you do. You could do that, but most people have actually said, no, I don't want the app to track me, and that's
something like 85%, I think.
Yeah, which good for those people, right? It's smart. So we don't really have that on Android. And I think we all understand Google and the way they make money well enough to understand we're never going to have that on Android. However, DuckDuckGo figured out a way to add this to Android, and they do that through their mobile app. I think they have a few apps, but their main app, DuckDuckGo, has a new feature in beta. It's invite only right now, but you can sign to be on the list. It's called App Tracking Protection. And what it does, this is genius, it uses a feature of Android, which is you can have a local VPN, which doesn't connect to any external servers, but it functions like a VPN by intercepting traffic. And by default, this thing will block all the trackers that it knows about on all of the apps on your phone. And it's like using a VPN. You get a little, key icon up in the corner there, up in the status bar in Google. It is astonishing how many trackers are happening. Now, granted, some of them are not malicious, right? Some of them are, metrics-based or like telemetry kind of things or whatever, like quality of service type deals. But a lot of them, it's like, what is going on here? And there was a statistic. Let me see if I can find this. They basically looked at some hundreds of the top apps on Android, which is like every app on Android, like the apps actually people run. And some gigantic majority of them, I'm trying to find the exact number, 87% of them send data to Google, and 68% of them send data to Facebook. Like, just to block that. So they let me into the program. I'm using it. I'm going to keep it on. I look at it like, it's sort of like, I don't know what to call it. Like if you have a fitness tracker and it tracks your sleep, you kind of look at it, you're like, I don't know what I can do about this, but you can just see what it is. Like, I slept like crap last night. Great. Of course I did. I always do. But it's like this, the sheer hundreds of trackers that it blocks every single day. In 3 days, it had blocked 50, I think it was 51 or 5,200 trackers in just 3 days. And some of these are apps I hadn't run. Like the Bose Music app was one of them. United, which I had installed but not signed into, were both sending trackers out. And it's like, what is going on here? So this is something to pay attention to. You don't have to make DuckDuckGo your default browser, your default search, or any of that stuff. But this thing will run in the background all the time, intercept tracking. You can disable it for apps individually if you want to. I didn't see a way to disable individual trackers. I think one thing I'd like to see is an explanation of what the trackers, like, because I had to Google them. Some of them I just look, I'm like, what is this thing, And some of them it's just like they're designed for developers. It's not really aimed to, well, it doesn't seem malicious to me, but there are legitimate reasons for app developers to want to know how the apps are doing or whatever, that kind of thing. Like, I get that. Like, I think it'd be interesting if I could say, just turn off Google and Facebook for everything, you know? And then maybe these other ones are okay. Maybe they're not. I don't know. You know, maybe over time, because it's only in beta, it will become more granular. But it's astonishing. Like, it's astonishing how much this thing has blocked. Scary.
Good. Nice. I think DuckDuckGo is a good company. And
yeah, I do too.
They do good work.
And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. That was a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. That was Windows Weekly 752, Stopping App Tracking. So, as they mentioned in iOS, for on the Apple side, iOS 14.5 offers this as a system feature, but on Android, where this will never happen, DuckDuckGo was able to do app tracking protection by pretending to be a VPN, a virtual private networking, which normally would be like, okay, you run a VPN client on your phone or your computer or whatever, and what it does is it creates an encrypted tunnel to some server on the internet or back at home or back at the office, and all your internet traffic is first routed through the encrypted tunnel, and then it emerges from your VPN server as if that were the location you were at. So if you're in a coffee house, you're in a hotel where, you know, there's a lot of random people on the network that may mean you ill will, or simply, you know, hey, you don't want your ISP to know every address you ever go to. You know, you get a VPN service, and, you know, hopefully one that, does what they call logless VPN, where, you know, all this information about the sites you visit are in memory. They never hit the hard disk. And as soon as you leave that site or end that VPN session, that server just disappears. And, you know, there's never a track of it on the hard drive. So, you know, if a malicious actor or the government comes in and says, oh, we want your servers, they won't get anything because all the information went up in smoke with when the VPN spun down. So this is an app that pretends to be a VPN for the purpose of, you know, making sure all the internet traffic that your phone or whatever is doing will go through this app first. So you got to trust the app because it's seeing everything you do. DuckDuckGo is kind of a pro-privacy. That's one of that's their distinction, is they're going to be more privacy aware than the other guys. So when they come out with a VPN app tracking blocker, that is right in their wheelhouse. That's exactly the sort of thing you'd expect them to do and be straight about it. So all your connections within your phone or device are going through this, you know, fake VPN. It's not actually going anywhere, but it just gets it in the loop so it sees all the communications coming in and out of your phone. And then it compares it to a blacklist of sites that are known to be tracking servers. You know, the place at Google where all the logistics are being sent back, or the place at Facebook where all the logistics are being sent back to. Probably few enough people are going to use the DuckDuckGo VPN app tracker blocking that they're just going to go, you know, and just let it be. You know, if you know, like 20 or 30% of the population is using this blocker, then they might start thinking about, you know, doing countermeasures to keep it from working. But in the meantime, they're just like, okay, well, whatever. You know, the smartest, the most tech savvy, it's actually sometimes in their benefit for them to be able to escape the sorts of indignities and privacy intrusions that everyone else has to suffer, because they're going to be the most, you know, those are the people, they expect a better experience, and they expect to have their rights respected, and, you know, they expect that they have the skills that, you know, if they're smart about it, they can dodge this stuff, and then they're happy, and they might gripe about it a little bit, but they're not going to make a whole bunch of noise. But when those guys, when even they, you know, even the people who program this stuff and no coding and no internet protocols and all this stuff, if the tracking becomes so bulletproof that they can't stop it, then they're going to scream bloody murder. And they're going to be listened to by the guys who write the code, who are themselves those guys. You know, it's like the people writing the tracking code sometimes are the same ones that would have a tracking blocker on their phones, because they are very aware, as you know, people that are swimming in data every day, they're very aware of how much information is being given away. To the rest of us, it's kind of invisible. And again, it comes back to not very much in the way of software liability. So, you know, if it's not explicitly, our system is kind of, if it's not explicitly illegal, it's okay. And the side effect of that is anything that is not widely known, anything that isn't widely resisted and complained about, will stay legal, especially when the people doing it have money and are, you know, sending money to the legislators to, you know, leave things the way they are. So this comes back to one of our central tenets on this show, which is when you have a better understanding of these things and you take the steps you need to protect yourself, or you make the noise you need to make the guys abusing our privacy shy away, make them a little afraid that they're going to get regulated. So this is one of those things, just by knowing about it, by talking about it, blog posting, social mediaing, writing your congressman, whatever. You know, this is how things slowly change. And it is a race, because, you know, this technology, usually it's first in the hands of the individuals and the rebels, liberate themselves a little bit, and then it works its way up to the money guys, and they start using it to crank down the screws on everybody. So depending on how fast the technology changes, the race can be in favor of the little guy. As it slows down, it becomes in favor of the big guy. So things to keep in mind. One of the things that is tied up in our security is passwords, which, strangely enough, I mean, we've come up with other technologies that we could be using, and we still do a lot of passwords. And passwords are a big problem, if nothing else, because people, once they've learned a certain password or a certain pattern of passwords, they like to keep using them. They like to use them in a lot of different places. And it is a secret that you and each of those services share. And if any one of them is compromised or turns out to be, you know, run by bad guys, they can then take those credential stuffing, they call it, just try those credentials on every popular service and see what other services you did the same username and password combination for. So picking good passwords is still an important thing. There's been enough out there of discovered passwords, where someone's taken a password file from some server and decrypted the passwords or reverse engineered the passwords. Basically, you just try everything and you hash it and see if it matches what's in the password file. And when it matches, you go, okay, that was it. Now you try all the English words, you try all the English words plus one number, or you try all the English words with L's replaced with ones or things like that. And, that gets a big swath of the passwords. So it's getting so you really need to use a password manager now, or one of the alternate technologies like SSH keys, two-factor authentication, biometrics. Not a super fan, but it's a thing. But anyway, without further ado, Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv, Security Now 846, with the annual Common Passwords Report.
This is Twit.
Just issued from NordPass. They published their annual analysis of password use across 50 countries. The top 10 most common passwords, still in 2021, currently are the absolute most used password. And this also explains, by the way, Leo, why there's a peak on 6-character long passwords. The thing that is holding the pole under that tent that is that chart is the password 123456.
Oh, Lord.
Count
For
the digits.
SSH. I mean, you might as well just, use Telnet. If you're going to take the trouble of using something secure, make a password.
Yes.
Crying out loud.
103,170,552 hits on the password.
Wow.
And I put that in quotes, 123456. Not easy to forget, pretty easy to brute force, and everybody tries it. And what was interesting was that was more than twice the number of hits of number 2. Number 2, yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, Leo, 7, 8, 9. That explains
There's the other
peak.
tent pole, yes.
The other little tent pole under that chart. Yep.
Yep.
That was at 46,027,530 hits. Then we have, for the lazier people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, just can't really be troubled to hit that 6th key. And then, believe it or not, at 22 million is QWERTY, QWERTY, because, it's right there in front of you. Also, almost equal to QWERTY, coming in with 8 characters, is just shy of 21 million, and the password is itself, PASSWORD. And, for someone who thought, I'm not going to go all the way out to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm going to be tricky and stop at 8 because, they're not going to check that. It's like, okay. Also in the 6-character password category is 111111. And then that was at 13.3 million, and we have 123 because that's even trickier than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's at 10.2 million.
It's also easier to enter.
It is, yes. You don't want to, brum brum. You're right. And then number 9 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. That's just shy of 10 million at 9.646 million, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So basically, nobody cares. Remember the studies have been done. If I got a candy bar here, would you give me your password in for a candy bar? And most people, I'm hungry. That looks like a good candy bar. Is that a Milky Way?
Yeah.
So among their other findings, the researchers found that, in their words, a stunning number of people use their own name, that's tricky, as their password. Charlie appeared as the 9th most popular password in the UK.
Charlie bit my finger.
One Direction was a popular music-related password option,
it's a group.
and the number of times Liverpool appears could indicate how popular the football team is. But in Canada, hockey was unsurprisingly the top sports-related option in active use. Swear words are also commonly employed.
Yes.
And when it comes to
Not in the
animal,
dictionary.
and when it comes to animal themes, dolphin was the most popular choice internationally. So, Leo, it looks like monkey is out.
Dolphin has replaced monkey.
Dolphin has replaced monkey.
I'm a plug for using SSH keygen, generate an ECC private and public key pair.
A certificate.
Yep.
Yes.
I do this on all, at GitHub everywhere. And at first I was using the same private public key everywhere. And I said, you know what? It's easy, simple. So I have a different one for every machine. Makes it easy to revoke a machine.
If you have a good SSH client, it will keep them all straight for you and manage them.
Yep.
So all you do is select who you want to log on to, and it does the job.
It's much better.
I use Bitvice for Windows, and I'm really happy with Bitvice.
Cool. That's a good tip. I'm not familiar with that. That's good.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm somewhat surprised, since those are purely numeric, without any letters or special characters. Most contemporary websites would never allow them to be used. But, I was thinking, if they were in place before specific requirements began to be added to sites, I could see as legacy passwords, they could still be valid today.
Well, and also SSH, usually you're controlling the server. I mean, the server is probably not configured
that's
to
a
be
very
that
good
secure
point.
if it's allowing that, obviously.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable. And if this is enterprise login, because I mean the presumption is that these are enterprise SSH servers, you know, how could they not enforce a policy that makes more sense? That's just mind-boggling.
And you're listening to Northwest Tech Show on KMUZ. That was a Creative Commons clip from the good folks at twit.tv. That was Security Now 846, talking about the most recent Common Passwords report from NordPass. So yeah, yeah. If you, I guess, if you only have a few guesses to try someone's password, you just go 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0 and password, and you probably get into a fair percentage of people's systems. So yeah, I guess a lot of the password or password setting ones for new passwords, it says stuff like, I have to have at least one lower, at least one uppercase letter, need to have at least one number in it, need to have one special character in it, like, percentage or whatever. And a lot of times they don't just tell you straight up what the rules are. They when you make a password and it fails one of their little tests, try that with a capital letter in there somewhere. It's like, okay, I did that. Try that with a special character in there somewhere. It's like, just tell me what you want me to do. It's not like, are you trying to keep it a secret from the bad guys? You don't think they can, if they know a couple of passwords, if they, can set up a password on the system, they're going to know what the rules are pretty quickly. And a lot of times, they just sort of, they might start with the assumption that if they try the numbers we were just talking about and it doesn't work, they go, okay, well, they must be requiring an uppercase letter or something. So SSH keygen. That is, I wish this were a little bit more mainstream. Yeah, you can do this sort of stuff with GitLabs and things like that. But, most people are not messing around with stuff like that. They're getting into their Facebook account, they're getting into their Gmail or whatever. And I guess to a certain point, these are moot because you put your password in and then, as long as you don't explicitly log out every time you go on, for the next year or so, it's going to be, it's going to be logged in. You don't have to type your password again, which in itself, kind of a thing. It is annoying sometimes when stuff logs you out for just no reason, but it probably is good because, I've had things like, oh, shoot, I almost forgot that password because I haven't actually had to type it for a long time. So in those cases, it's good, I suppose, to force people to remember their passwords every once in a while, but there's just so many. So if you're using a password manager, then it doesn't matter. You're never going to forget it as long as you have a password manager. If you have a certificate, it's never going to matter. This is a work in progress. Steve Gibson was working on a project called Squirrel, which automatically made a elliptic curve private public key pair based on your username and what site you were going to. You didn't have to do anything except say, okay, I want to establish this with my Squirrel account, for websites that support it. And thereafter, you could log in real easily. Just take a picture of the site would give you a QR code, and you'd point your phone with Squirrel on it at it, and it would acknowledge and send the proper countersign to the site saying, yes, this is a legitimate session that we're trying to open up for this identity. And, it would just log you in. So I really like to see that sort of technology be more widespread. Fortunately, it's pretty easy for servers to add it. It's almost trivial amount of code to add. Just like basically just have a QR code that pops up that's hooked to this code, and you're good to go. But passwords are going to be with us for a while. I mean, I kept expecting them to die, but they just hang in there. People keep using the same thing. It's almost like the IPv4, which is traditional internet numbers, and we ran out of distinct IP addresses. There's only so many combinations of 0 to 256 with 4 numbers like that, separated by dots, called the dotted quad. And for a long time now, we've been like, we really need to go to internet version 6 that, has enough addresses for every molecule in the universe or something. You really literally could never run out. But, it's like, oh, well, as long as IPv6 works, sort of, for the clients, it works fine. The company is trying to shuffle around with the few remaining IP addresses are kind of getting knocked out. But it's just, the pain point hasn't hit hard enough for people to switch off of it. And now they're trying to change the protocol for what addresses were reserved as local addresses, 127.0.0.1 and all the 127 dot addresses. They're supposed to be non-routable. And an IETF memo just came out saying, oh, you know what? These are now going to be legit regular IP addresses, except for, like 127.0.0 dot anything is still going to be reserved as a local loopback stuff and won't be routable. But all the other 127 dots will be fine. Or maybe 127.1 dot anything would still be fine. And on one level, it's really crazy trying to change something fundamental to the current internet. And on another, it's like, well, you don't have to use them right away. You can change that code, and in 10 years, everything that's currently running will be offline, and you'll be able to start using those IPv4 addresses. Yeah, it's looking at different time schedules can be a thing. All right, and with that, we've done it again. Spent an hour talking about technology and how a better understanding can lead to better outcomes at home, at work, and in your civic engagements. I hope you'll join us to continue these conversations next Wednesday and every Wednesday, noon to 1 o'clock on Northwest Tech Show.